All right, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV Television and Radio in Freetown, Sierra Leone.
Coming up in the program today, we shall be discussing Dr. Samuel Wilson Kamara's, speech, the leader of the main opposition party, about peace and unity in the country, all geared towards the tripartite committee, report that is yet to be launched or released.
And also, the Sierra Leone Institution of Engineers will be hosting their biennial conference from the 25th June to the 28th of June on the theme Contemporary Approaches to Engineering Education and Practices. And AfriCell Sierra Leone will be organizing their Customer Awareness Day.
Well, indeed. We'll start the program now and shall be discussing in the studio this morning with our very first guest, as you've heard from Elizabeth. So the Sierra Leone Institution of Engineers, will be hosting their biennial conference from the 25th to the 28th of June on the theme Contemporary Approaches to Engineering Education and Practices. Now, the conference looks at ways to improve the engineering field, among other things. Well, to talk more on this, we have been joined by engineer Trudy Morgan, who is the president, Sierra Leone Institution of Engineers. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you so much.
And also, AfriCell Sierra Leone will be organizing their Customer Awareness Day in a bid to raise awareness on customer service, among other things. To talk about this, we have in the studio the Managing Director, AfriMoney, Matisin Obeng Aji. Good morning and welcome.
Perhaps we should begin with Trudy. It's a pleasure. This is the first time coming to our studio.
I've been here a few times before.
Okay.
But this is the first time meeting both of you. What
Okay.
have you liked?
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Your biennial conference sounds more academic than practical.
Actually, may I?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, it's not. SLIE, Sierra Leone Institute of Engineers, we have a biennial conference, which means that we hold it every 2 years. Not every year. Some people do it every year, but we choose to do it every 2 years. And it is a platform not just for academics, but for industry professionals, as well as government institutions that work with work within the engineering sector, and students, graduates, for anybody interested and involved in engineering. This year, as you said, the theme is contemporary approaches to engineering, education and practice. And there's a reason for that. Engineering education, most people assume that it finishes when you finish university or when you finish school, or if you're going to do a master's or a PhD. Within the professional space, there is a concept called lifelong learning. And lifelong learning means that regardless of where you are in your journey as a professional, things will change. And in order to remain relevant, competent, up to date, you must involve yourself and immerse yourself in the changes that are happening within your sector. And for us in engineering, lifelong learning is a must. I say this, and I've said it here, but maybe your first time hearing me say it. Sierra Leone is a developing country, therefore we need our engineers. The world is moving at the pace of knots. Technology, AI in particular, is allowing education, engineering practice to speed ahead. And we must, in order to remain relevant in our field, working in this country, we also must ensure that we're up to speed. Because if we decide that, oh, we're okay, it's Sierra Leone, we are a developing nation, we'll take our time, what will happen is the rest of the world will speed ahead. We will remain stagnant, and the engineering that we practice in Sierra Leone will be obsolete, and we will not be able to move from here to other countries. I hear my colleague's name, I assume he's from Ghana. Currently, as we speak, the number of Ghanaian and Nigerian and Kenyan engineers in our country is probably maybe 50% of the number of Sierra Leonean engineers. And that's because some of our people in various organizations believe that our engineers are not up to speed. They're not up to date.
Do you feel that they're not up to speed?
Do I feel that? I am the president of the Sierra Leone Institute of Engineers. How could I feel that? I understand and acknowledge that we have challenges. I understand and acknowledge that we are doing a lot to change the way that we teach and we implement. And that is a work in progress. There is also a lot, believe it or not, that we do here that could be considered best practice across the sub-region and across the world globally. We do things that are not done elsewhere because, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And we found ways to do our work better. The point I was trying to make earlier is not that we don't do, is that we must also acknowledge and keep doing so that we remain at the cutting edge.
So the thing is, I have no doubts that a lot of our engineers are very brilliant, you understand, they are masters of their craft, you understand, but you cannot do so much when technology is absent, you know, the much needed paraphernalia, if I should call them, you know, gadgets are missing, and that's a problem. That's the void I'm talking about when I said up to speed. You know, up to speed in this context would mean that they are totally behind when you talk about technology. Don't you think so?
I wouldn't not agree with you. And let me just explain why I wouldn't agree with you. Technology is a very interesting thing. A lot of people think that technology is something that's there. It's not. Technology is here and it's here. It's what you do with here and you translate that into here.
You don't believe in machines?
Machines rule the world. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, we're talking about AI. One of the sub-themes, I was just going to read through to you. We have 6 sub-themes, and I'll come back to answer your questions. The first one is AI in education and general practice. The second one is my passion, continuing professional development and lifelong learning. The third one is approaches to education. The question is Africa getting it right? Our fourth sub-theme around diversity and inclusion, and there's a lot that we can talk around that. The fifth one is addressing climate vulnerability, and the sixth one is engineering diplomacy. Is that a useful tool for and thinking of us as a developing country, and the fact that we need to partner and collaborate with people from across the world. So coming back to your question, in terms of the speed at which we are moving, YouTube is a great tool. Google is an amazing tool. And with that, we have the opportunities to learn how to make things, build things. In this country, there are I'm sure you are aware that last week we had the first amazing tech summit, which the minister, Salim Abba, was in charge of. And unfortunately, I could not make it. I was sick. I had COVID and malaria, but it was amazing. And what we saw, I saw your eyebrows go up. Yes, COVID is still here.
COVID
I did.
Malaria.
Yeah.
Okay, should I be careful?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm fine. I would not come and give you anything. But yeah, so coming back to the tech summit, but it was an opportunity for Sierra Leone to showcase its best. And those who were there were astounded. These are not people from outside. These are our people, our young people, our future technologists, our future engineers. What is required, you talked about, is the education appropriate? What we require is like anything. For business to thrive, you must have an enabling environment for business to thrive. For education to thrive, you must have the enabling environment for education to thrive. For tech and innovation to thrive, you must have the enabling environment. And the internet gives us that environment to work, to start, if not to finish, but at least to start making gains. And one of the great things, I mean, this issue of engineering diplomacy that we talk about, is the ability not to just to work within the space that we find here, but to collaborate with other people. So during the conference next week, there will be 2 separate meetings running parallel. One is the West African Federation of Engineering Organizations. And our colleagues are coming from Nigeria, Kenya, Liberia, Ghana, and they'll be online from Burkina, Senegal. I'm not sure about Mali. But for the West Africans, we already have this organization, this body, this platform, where we are talking about a range of different things. And not yet technology and how we work through technology, but I'm sure that will come in time. But for the time being, most of the thing on that particular platform is how do we allow our young graduates, our engineers, to leave Sierra Leone and go work in Mali or in Burkina or in Ghana or in Nigeria, and for them to be confident that when they come, the knowledge, the information, the competence is at par. So that's what we're working on. I beg your pardon?
You think they'll come back?
They'll come back.
It's a risky investment, if you ask me.
Oh, please. I mean, we've been working. This is not, this
Because
hasn't started
considering the
today.
pay grade in Sierra Leone,
I'm sorry?
Considering the pay grade in Sierra Leone, I mean, quite infinitesimal to what they're paying other engineers around the sub-region even.
Okay, so that's a different question. I'm sure somebody sent you a message.
Oh, no.
And, okay, okay. So the issue of pay is one that we recognize and we have been addressing. I don't want to jump off topic, but I want to answer that.
They are inextricably linked, you know. It's the
Yes.
whole discussion. Yeah.
Well, we do have a challenge, and I talk about the enabling environment. We do have a challenge. If Sierra Leone has a lot of work, historically, when you graduated, there were engineering companies that were Sierra Leonean. That meant that they needed to fill their companies with young people, with graduate engineers. They took from the pool of engineers that graduated. Over time, the way that projects are funded has changed, and a lot of donor organizations are in country. These donor organizations now say, well, if I'm from somewhere in the Far East, I want people from my part of the world to do the work. If I'm from the Western Hemisphere, I may want people from my part of the country. So what's tending to happen is that we have these projects that are going on, but the funding is dictating who works. And because not all of our Sierra Leonean engineering companies are able to participate for a number of different reasons, their ability to take on young engineers is limited, and therefore the training and the competence building that would normally happen is eradicated. And because if you have a project and it's for a fixed term, 1 year, 2 years, and you're being paid by a donor, you're expected to come, start, and finish. And if you want to do your job properly, you're going to take people who know. And there's very little scope in these budgets to train. So if there was a scope to train, or there was a training budget, you could take on the young engineers. You could put them through a pace, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years even, to give them the experience and the exposure that they require. So again, back to the enabling environment. From a business perspective, we need to move away from, okay, it's a donor project, therefore it's a project, therefore we need to bring in outsiders. If we keep on bringing in outsiders, we will never train our own. And our own will leave and go to other countries. And guess what? I had a conversation last week, and I reminded somebody that when I left Ferry College and I went to the UK, I met a senior female engineer who had graduated before me, and she was in Germany. She left with a third class degree. She went to Germany, did 2 years, and was a distinction student. And they're like, oh my God, we're not giving ourselves the opportunities to shine. And we have to do that. So flipping quickly back to the issue that you raised about the salary, yes, it's very true. And I know for a fact that many people will say, oh, these kids or these young engineers, they don't know anything. They can't do anything. We'll go and pay Mr. XYZ from this country dollars so he can come and do it. But guess what? He'll come and do it. He'll take that knowledge and he'll go. They don't train. It doesn't stay in the country. We do not benefit. And the fight for all of us should be that whatever we do, whatever sector, not just engineering, in medicine, in education especially, we must fight to keep the knowledge and the understanding and the training here. Because if it goes, it's gone. We had a situation not too long ago where somebody we were told that if you go to Guinea, you get these amazing artisans. So he went to Guinea. Guess where these artisans are from? Sierra Leone. They are the people who we say, they can't tile, they can't paint, they can't plumb, la 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 la. But they go to Guinea, a couple of hours away, and they are thriving to the extent that when they refer our Sierra Leoneans, but why can't they perform here? We must ask ourselves that question. Sorry, where am I going with this?
It's okay, but I think there's a lot to discuss actually. Trudy, we'll get back to you in a jiffy.
And now let's come
A stimulating discussion around technology and the potential it has, in Sierra Leone.
Of course.
Perhaps it's now time for us to just peruse through some of the Facebook messages we've been receiving on our Facebook page.
You start?
Yeah.
Trying to get mine.
Me too. Okay. Well, so I think this is from. This is Usman Prince Suleiman Kavon. Says, we have engineers who don't understand the blueprints.
And from Usman Prince Suleiman, he says, how would Africell money return the sender's money and go after the criminal who mistakenly received the payout that was sent?
Usman Prince Suleiman Kavon again saying, how many engineers we have in the country who have built an advanced bridge without the interference of outside engineers?
And Favor Koma is asking, I have tried several times to send mobile money from the US, but it doesn't go through. Why is that? Please, can you elaborate on that, please?
Usman again, what are some of your projects you have worked on as an internal engineers, organization I'm sure he's referring to?
Usman again, what type of encryption are you using to protect transactions so that people wouldn't hack into their account? How could you prevent in-house employees not to tamper with customers' account? Yeah, I think that's
the man again is saying, what are some of your international standards?
I think these are some of the messages we can.
Some of the messages that we've been able to, gather or read through. So, engineer, if you don't mind, you can start the ball rolling.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think, if I recall, I beg your pardon, the first question was around blueprints. And by that, I'm thinking he means design drawings. Okay, so typically, if you're going to create something, you need to conceptualize it, you need to plan it, you need to design it, and that process, of course, starts with sketches. They become a design, a concept design, a detailed design, and then a construction or implementation design, depending on what you're doing. And his question was, how many engineers know how to read blueprints, design drawings? I would say right from the university, because one of the things that you do when you're at university is to learn to create these drawings. So if you're creating the drawings, you need to know, you will know how to read them. So interesting question, and interesting choice of words for the use of blueprints. The next question was about how many engineers would be able to create a bridge, or was it a specific bridge?
No,
really,
just in general.
Most of our big projects in Sierra Leone, engineers are imported for them.
But
so he's asking, how many of these, local constructions
correct.
have you had your hands on as local engineers?
Okay, so in a lot of cases, even though you have people who are brought in, they still need to work with local engineers because it's always about context. You can bring people in from Sweden, from Denmark, from Spain, from China, wherever, but there's still a local content aspect which needs to be considered. We don't have the same geology, our weather is different, and there are implications for all of that, which requires local input. But then I'd like to just jump back to my conversation not too long ago, when I said these major projects, when they come in with more or less their own staff or their own preferred companies to work, which cuts out the Sierra Leonean engineers, especially the younger ones. If you're senior, more mature, quite a bit of experience, you're normally asked to come and support, to help, to be a part of it. But if you're learning and just coming out of university, looking for, training ground, unless you've got some really good credentials or connections, it's hard to get in there. So with these projects, I wouldn't say that I know 100% hand on heart any that is done wholly by a Sierra Leonean company. And again, it depends on the scale, because some of these construction projects that happen with the likes of Nemo Construction, I'm trying to think, there's so many companies, all of them, they've all gone out of my head. But we do have large Sierra Leonean companies that regularly work on these projects. It may be that the funder is from overseas. It may be that they have a supervising team from overseas. But in a lot of cases, a lot of work is done by Sierra Leonean companies. The challenge always is we do the work, but we don't get paid the money that is really owed. And therefore, we're always at the mercy and always striving to get the next project. What really needs to happen is a scenario where the engineering fraternity is allowed to thrive. Because like I said at the start, Sierra Leone, as a developing nation, still needs to develop. And that development comes through the work of the engineer, in the road, in your buildings, through tech, through the hospitals, whatever. The engineer is still a relevant part, and we need to allow engineers to thrive.
I just wanted to follow up on that. In what ways do you think, engineers can build this huge trust, for the work they're doing? How can the government, let's say, for instance, trust our local engineers? I
believe that the government trusts our local engineers because
they wouldn't be importing engineers then, if that trust was that huge.
Well, a lot of
most of the leaders of these big projects are foreigners,
who pays for them?
Are you saying the Institute of Engineers has its hands wrapped around these projects in the first place? Okay,
can you please define what you mean wrapped around these projects? No, the point I was trying to make.
I was saying,
yes.
Now, in most cases, most of our big projects in the city, engineers are imported for them. Okay. They are being paid, their hotel fees are being paid, per diems and all of these things. And we have local engineers who would have perhaps otherwise stepped in and lead these projects in a way. You don't have to bring leaders from other countries around. That's
Correct.
what I'm saying.
Correct.
So how can that trust be built?
Well, again, it's a very simple. It's not a simple thing. It's like everything. It's very complicated.
Okay.
Trust is earned. Okay, and if I were to say that, trust me, I'm an engineer, you'd say, yeah, right, and you'd go and get somebody from overseas. But when you see the work, when you see the commitment, when you see the competence, and at the end of the day, the quality of what we deliver speaks for itself. Again, the enabling environment for engineers to thrive is like any other business. If you're given the space to do your work, to design the way you need to design, to procure the right people, to implement without any interference, our engineers can perform as brilliantly as any other nationality. Some of these other people, when they come, they don't have the encumbrances that we do. They don't have some of the local encumbrances. So their hands are not tied. They're not called to meetings, and they're not, whatever. But I think that we need to be more generous to our local engineers. So I don't want to name names, but Centurion is a company that is doing amazing things in Sierra Leone. And he's not the only one. There's so many of them. I get that brain fog every time I have to think about companies. And forgive me, all the engineering companies, you're all amazing, wonderful, I love you. And as soon as I remember your name, I'll start calling you names. But at the point I come back, on a very serious note, I come back to my point. We have good engineers. They leave Sierra Leone, they perform extremely well overseas.
Because there are machines there.
There are machines there.
We'll come back to how we started, in the first place.
It's the enabling environment.
Yes.
And I keep on saying the enabling environment because it's not one thing. It's a combination of things. For engineering, if you ask me, and this is just my personal view, it's not the institution. This is Engineer Trudy Morgan. This is my own personal view. That it starts from getting people to understand and love science. To understand that it doesn't start when you get to university. It starts before then. Okay. Everybody needs to stop playing with Lego. Everybody needs to start pulling things apart and putting them back together. You do that at primary school level. By the time you get to secondary school level, you start working on kits, building kits, coding, doing all of these things. By the time you get to university, your project is not a copy and paste. It's something that is actually meaningful and can be commercialized. By the time you get into the working environment, it's a different case altogether. It's the enabling environment, and we must address it step by step by step. Right. The institution is trying, but our remit, our mandate is for professional engineers. We work with the university, and as part of what we do, we work with schools, awareness raising, etc. But our mandate is for professional engineers, and this is why this year and this conference is important, because the issue of lifelong learning is what we're pushing. We cannot remain the same. We cannot stay in the same space. The status must change. Right. We must develop and grow as engineers. It must be seen, it must be felt. Our competence should be believed, and we must earn and gain the trust of everybody in our society. Just to say that as part of what the institution is doing into 2025, every year, in order to practice as an engineer in Sierra Leone, under the law, you have to have a practicing certificate license, which we at the institution offer. So if you want to practice in Sierra Leone, foreigner, local, don't care where you're from, Mars, you have to get a license permit to work as an engineer in Sierra Leone. And as of 2025, you just don't come and say, oh, I'm paying my fees, I'm ready to go. We're asking you, what have you done to develop your skill sets in your discipline over the past year? Okay. And you must demonstrate that before we allow you to continue. Coming back to the issue of bridges.
Let me just hold you there a bit. Let's take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll definitely continue with the discussions here. You earlier on mentioned as well your institution and that of Furby College. You talked about students working on projects. Is the curriculum designed, I'm talking about the university level now, is it designed in a way wherein we would get these students to really work on projects maybe in their final year, which you mentioned will be commercialized? Is it possible?
I am so happy you asked that question, because I was thinking that I forgot to mention something very important. There is an ongoing project with the University of Sierra Leone, industry partners, and the institution. I lead on the aspect of gender, but I also lead on a concept that we're working through called problem-based learning. And two things before I go into that. Number one, the institution has worked with the Royal Academy of Engineering in the past and collaborated with Imperial College London to do and understand the pedagogy